Good morning and welcome once again to the JBDC Virtual Biz Zone. My name is Sansia Campbell and I'm the Partnerships and Events Coordinator here at the Jamaica Business Development Corporation. So I know that we were away for a little bit. I bet you thought we weren't coming back, but you know us, we would have been back, and we are continuing in our series, and we are going to be in our compliance series, and we're going to be focusing this morning on maintaining standards in the production and manufacturing process. And so, because that's what we're focusing on this morning, we have called out the big guns, right? The Bureau of Standards Jamaica. We have a team online with us this morning, and they are going to be exploring this topic in they're going to be looking at everything. And so we want to welcome this morning our presenters. We have Mr. Shane Slater, we have Miss Kimberly Powell, and we also have Miss Paulette Bailey. And I'm going to tell you about each of the persons. Shane is the Standards Development Officer in the Standards Development branch of the Bureau of Standards. He has a background in environmental management, and he represents Jamaica on the Technical Management Committee and Editorial Committee of the CARICOM Regional Organization for Standards and Quality. He currently facilitates the BSJ Bamboo, Building Code, Biodegradable Plastics, and Building and Associated Materials National Technical Committees, right? And then you have Miss Kimberly Powell, who has had a deep connection with nature since she was a child. She has loved science and nature, and she decided to merge the two and complete a BSc in Applied Science with Environmental Science major, and is now completing a master's in sustainable energy and climate change. And then our third presenter, who is Paulette Bailey, she has worked at the Bureau for over a decade. She's highly competent and a dedicated professional with expertise in writing and interpreting the diverse standards and regulation. And what this basically means, ladies and gentlemen, is that this is the team that you need whenever you are deciding to go to market with your product, because the idea is that the products that come out of Jamaica, the products and services come out of that are coming out of Jamaica should come out at a certain standard, that we are competitive wherever it is that we decide to trade in the world. So that is why we have brought out these big guns this morning, right? So as is customary, the session is going to be recorded. So for all those persons you know who should have been here but cannot be here again because of the different circumstances, please let them know that the session is being recorded and it will be available on our YouTube channel, right? And also you can decide to follow us on any of our social media pages, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whichever one we are on those platforms as well, and we'll be sharing this presentation via those platforms as well, so that you will know that the presentation is up and it's ready for viewing whenever and wherever you are. All right, so without further ado, because I expect this morning is going to be one filled with information, and so I am going to start with Shane, and he is going to do his presentation. Please feel free to drop your questions in the chat, your comments in the chat, so that we can just keep the questions running when the time comes for that to happen. So without further ado, it's over to you, Shane.
Thank you for that introduction. All right, so I will be giving an overview of how you on using standards in your production and manufacturing. So first, we need to understand what is a standard. So the international definition is that a standard is a document that is established by consensus and approved by recognized bodies such as the Bureau of Standards that provides for common and repeated use, and it gives you the rules, guidelines, and characteristics for activities and their results aimed at achieving the optimum degree of order in a given context. And to put that simply, it's basically an acceptable way of doing things that is agreed upon by all the relevant stakeholders. So at the Bureau of Standards, we don't develop standards on our own. We bring in all the relevant stakeholders from academia, from the industry, from the consumer affairs, and they come together and decide what will be the best way forward for the particular product or service. Okay. So there are various different types of standards. You have specifications. So these set out the actual requirements that need to be met by the product or service. So for example, if you're making a chair, the specification will tell you how much weight that chair needs to be able to hold. Now, if you're involved in testing your products, then you'll definitely be interested in a method of test standard, which gives you a detailed account of how you will go about testing whether that product in fact meets the specification. We also have codes of practice, which gives you recommendations for the common accepted practices in that industry. We also have vocabulary standards, which are basically just a list of terms and their definitions so that everyone in that particular industry and sector is using the same language. And then finally, we also have guide standards, which just give you basic general information about the topic and any background information. So why do we use standards? So there are various benefits of using standards. When you implement a standard, you have operational consistency because you're documenting your procedures, you have a system in place, so you have that consistency. And as I said in the definition, a standard allows for repeated use. So when you have a standard in place, you have that consistency in your production. Especially when it comes to management systems, a key aspect of those standards is continual improvement. And what that means is when you're in operation, you're always required to review your processes and see where there may be some shortcomings, and then you would do some corrective actions to improve that process and make it better. So when you implement a standard, there will always be improvement of your product, your services. Now, customer confidence, of course, if you have a standard in place that allows for a consistent product, then obviously your customer will have confidence in you being able to deliver quality and safe products. Increase efficiency and productivity. Again, if you have a system in place that allows you to repeat the processes, it allows you to be consistent, and you have that efficiency and increased productivity in your business. And of course, you have reduced costs and wastage if you have that consistency, because you'd have less non-compliant products that you may have to discard of. And then when you combine all of this, the customer satisfaction, the efficiency, improvement, the consistency, then of course you're going to end up with increased profits. And I'm sure everyone can agree that that is a major benefit of using standards. So I know that a lot of small businesses are involved in agro-processing. So I'm just going to give you an overview of some of the standards relating to that. I won't be able to go into detail of all the requirements, but just to give you an idea of what we offer. So you see a whole list here. We have standards for coffee, macaroni, mayonnaise, bread, sugar, ackee. We have standards for orange juice, honey, poultry products, rice, water. So any major food product you can think of, we have a standard that guides how they should be produced. Now, when you're going about your production, you're encouraged to use good agricultural practices and good manufacturing practices. And some of the standards that guide these practices include the GS 317, which speaks to processed food utilizing the HACCP principles, and HACCP stands for hazard analysis critical control points. And especially if you're thinking of exporting, it's definitely important to know the GS 317. We have the JCP CRCP5, which is the Code of Practice for General Principles of Food Hygiene. And if you're into organic production, then you look at the CRCP9. And for all food processors, you definitely need to know the GS36, because this is the standard that guides the registration of food processors of any food establishment. So when you want to put your product on the market and sell to the public, you're going to need to be registered as a food establishment with the NCRA, which is the National Compliance Regulatory Authority, and they use the GS36 as the basis for their inspection. So leading from that, I'm going to give you an overview of what happens when you want to register a food establishment. So you'd identify the relevant standards. So that would be the GS36, of course, and the CRS5, which is the labeling standard for prepackaged foods, and any other applicable product standard that you, based on what specific product that you will be producing. So once you do that, you familiarize yourself with the requirements, then you would conduct product testing to make sure it does in fact meet the requirements. Now, when you've produced your product and you have your systems in place, you also want to do a label assessment. You're going to have that product packaged and sold. You're going to want to make sure that you have all the required labeling requirements on that label. And then following that, you would be required to submit your certificate from the company's office, your tax compliance certificate, and you need to complete your application for registration. So when you're doing that application, if you're not producing a prescribed food, and I can share that list with you of what the prescribed foods are afterwards, you'd complete a standard act application. And if it is a prescribed food, you'd also complete the processed food application form. You make your payment, and then you schedule with the NCRA when they can come in to your establishment and make that assessment. And once you're successful, then you would receive your certificate of registration of an establishment. And this certificate is valid for 1 year, and you can renew it afterwards. Now, I spoke to HACCP earlier, and again, if you're into export of food, this is a very important standard to know. And some of the basic principles are that you would be identifying points along your process during the production of a product where potential hazards may occur. So where you may have contamination entering into your system, you want to identify those points, and then you're going to analyze the risk of those hazards happening and the scale of the consequences if they do in fact happen. And once you analyze that risk, you're going to decide which points along that process of production are critical to ensuring consumer safety. And then following that, you will implement any necessary controls, any monitoring program, and taking any action needed to address that risk. And then when that all is said and done, you're going to be reviewing your plan, your HACCP plan, annually to ensure that you can continue to safeguard your consumers. Now, when it comes to standardization and good practices, by far the most common standard is the ISO 9001. And this standard speaks to quality management systems and their requirements. And this standard is applicable for any product or service. It can be applied. So what is at the foundation of this standard is the plan, do, check, act cycle. So what that entails is that you're going to plan what you're going to do, the resources you need, any risks and opportunities. And then when you go into the actual operation, which is the do part of this cycle, you're going to identify any support that you need and actually have the actual implementation of your processes. And then after you have your system going, then you're going to do your checks. That's the check part of the cycle where you do your performance evaluation, you do any audits, any inspections, just to see how successfully you're meeting your objectives and your laid out plan and your process flow. And then after you do that evaluation, if you identify any areas where you need to, make some changes, make some corrections, then you will do your improvements in the act part of the cycle, and you do your corrective and preventive action. And then this cycle continues and repeats. So you go back to your planning and you do your check your acts, right? So that is the foundation of ISO 9001. And this standard is the basis for basically all the management system standards. So I can't go into every single one of the standards that we have on our catalog, but I pulled out a few that may be relevant for small businesses. We have standards for cosmetics, botanical cosmetics, clothing, liquors, wines, rum, and we have a standard for that gives you guidance on how you would do a product recall as well. So I'm just gonna give you an idea of the labeling standards, and I'm sure my colleagues will delve a bit more into this topic. So I'll just give you an overview of some of the standards. So the first three standards you see on my list, those are the key standards you need to know when it comes to labeling, because these cover generally all of products. So you have the JS 341, which is the labeling of goods, required general requirements. And for prepackaged goods, you have 350. And then for foods, prepackaged foods, you have the JS CRS 5. And once you have those, once you are knowledgeable of these standards, then you can get more specific into the actual product that you're making. So whether it be toys, which is the GS 1 Part 9, you have pantyhose, footwear, furniture, gloves. We have labeling standards for staples and nails, household chemicals, finishes, fruit juices, tissue products, uh, pesticides, brewery products, textiles, care labeling, warranties for goods, retail packages of aerosol insecticides, food products. All right. And that wraps up my presentation. I think you'll get more into detail in labeling with when my colleagues make a presentation. Do you have any questions for me at this point?
Yes, Shane, thank you so much. That was really short, but I did write down a question. I noticed that while your other colleagues get ready in the meantime, I noticed that while you were presenting, you talked about applying for standards certificates. Where do the MSMEs, this right here, but right. So we know where we get the company's office and the tax compliance, but there is application for registration of an establishment. Where do we find that? Where do we get that application?
So that application goes to the NCRA, that's the National Compliance and Regulatory Authority.
And where is that located?
That is located right behind the Bureau of Standards, actually.
Okay, okay. And then in terms of the relevant standards, J30, JS36, JSCR5, and so on, how would entrepreneurs recognize the need for these standards such that they would go ahead and try to secure these applications and stuff? Is there any sensitization going on where any of this is concerned?
We do have sensitization session from time to time.
Mhm.
I don't really have a set schedule of those sessions, but you
Okay.
can definitely reach out to us. I have the contact information here. You can give us
Right.
a call, especially we have a library at
Mhm.
the BSJ. If you want to come in, you can always come in and ask questions, and you can sit in our library and read through whichever standard you're interested in. So when you contact us, you can ask for the Technical Information Center, which
Mhm.
is our library, and they can assist you in getting access to the standards that you would need.
Great. And then there's a question that just came in the chat. Are brewed products wines and liquors? That's what we call brewed products.
Those, I believe, let me look on the list because I believe they're treated separately. Labeling, labeling of brewery products is beer, stout, shandy, malta. Labeling of brewed products. I have to double check to see if there's the labeling is treated separately.
Okay. And
Yeah.
is there a cost associated with applying for these standards?
For purchasing these standards, yes, the cost is dependent on the size of the document. So there's not a set cost for each
Okay.
one. So you, again, that would be with the TIC, the Technical Information Center. They'll be able to give you a costing for whichever standard you need.
Okay, all right, great. All right, fabulous. Thank you so much, Shane. We might have some other questions coming up as we go along, but we want to move quickly now to Kimberly and Paulette. And so, ladies, you may go ahead.
A pleasant morning, everyone.
Morning.
Good morning. Are we ready to learn?
Yes, we are waiting, rearing and ready to go.
Lovely, lovely. That's the spirit.
All right.
So it is indeed a privilege for us from the Bureau of Standards to be sharing with you today on the major topic, maintaining standards in the manufacturing and the production process. Of course, our subtopic is labeling of prepackaged foods and prepackaged goods. I'm Paulette Bailey, and beside me, of course, is Kimberly Powell, my co-presenter. We're from the Packaging, Non-Metallic and Furniture branch of the Science and Technology Division of the Bureau of Standards. It's a pleasure to be with you. For an overview of our presentation, we'll be giving you a comparison of the import and export of manufactured goods and foods. You'll see why this is important. And I'll be giving you a little activity as well. Then Ms. Powell is gonna come on and give you some general labeling guidelines for the prepackaged goods in the local market. Then I'll rejoin to give you just a little information on some labeling guidelines as well for the USA and the United Kingdom. And we'll be telling you a little bit about the other services that we offer in the branch, because I'm sure you know you probably are looking for some other services for your business. But right now, I want to give you a little activity. I know some of you are exposed to our standards. You have been working with them, so you have an idea of the requirements. Probably some of you are not. Now, what you're looking at is a label. It has a lot of errors on it. It has quite a few errors on it. I'd like to give you just about 2 minutes to look at it and tell me how many errors you can identify. You can probably just stick it in the chat. I'll give you just 2 minutes to look at it and tell me how many errors you can identify.
Is it that the wording is too small? I don't know.
You can tell me what is the ban.
Somebody says as Lionel, what exactly? I'm not sure what you're saying. He writes down the name, nature's, what is that, finest or finesse?
Finesse.
Okay, nature's finesse. I'm not sure. I feel really, I feel really lack of directions given about the product.
Okay, all right. So can you please just record the errors that you see, and we'll direct you in a few.
All right.
Okay.
Right. Giving you 30 more seconds to take a look.
Somebody wrote down no batch code in the chat. No expiration date, no best before date.
Okay, so what we're going to do, we have a list of the errors that you have identified. After Ms. Powell has gone through her presentation, we're going to give you another chance to look at it again and see if you identify any additional errors before we give you the solution. Is that okay? All right. So we'll move on from this activity and we'll get back to it in a little. Thank you so much, participants. So what you're looking at now is a graph of the import and export of manufactured goods and foods for the period 2008 to 2022. This information was given to us by Statin. Now, if you look at the bold lines, they directly represent the information. The dotted line shows the trajectory, right? If you look at this blue line here, this blue line represents the manufactured goods for the period, the export for the period 2008 to 2022. And it is almost a flat line, which shows that there was hardly any increase. And it is also at the bottom of the graph. So we definitely weren't doing good with export there. However, look at the import for manufactured goods for the same period here. You notice that it is significantly more, and you can see that it is on the increase as well. The same goes for export for food for the same period. Even though it's a little bit more than the manufactured goods, we see that there's hardly any increase. And we also see that the rate of import for the same period is significantly more. We're showing you this because we are encouraging you to get into the export business. The services that we offer you here at the Bureau of Standards can compete on the global level, right? So if you're interested, you can check us. There's a lot of information and a lot of help we can give you when it comes on to exporting, right? So this is a deliberate call, a plea to get into the export business. Right now, it's over to Ms. Powell to give you some more information on the local labeling requirements.
All right, good morning again. So I will be sharing with you the labeling requirements specifically for prepackaged foods. But before I do that, I want us to have an appreciation as to what a label actually is. So a label is any written, electronic, or graphic communication about the product on the packaging or on a separate but associated material. Now, some points that you may want to consider when you are packaging and labeling your products. A correct label must meet the regulatory requirements. That is crucial. It also needs to give sufficient information about the product, and it also should advertise the product itself. Now, ideal packaging, it may be cost effective. It should contain the goods sufficiently, and of course, it must provide security seal. So the packaging and the seal of the package must contain the product so that the integrity of the seal is maintained until the customer breaks it. Now, labeling, we see it on packages. Sometimes persons take it for granted, but it serves crucial. It serves two main crucial purposes, right? So one, again, it serves to advertise the product, because remember, your products will be placed on the supermarket shelves and so on. It will be there with several other similar products. So your label is what you will use to let your product stand out. Say to the customer, hey, pick me, don't pick that other brand, you know? The label also must be used to provide information to your customers so that they can make informed decisions. And the next major importance of a label is that it must comply with all the regulatory requirements. It must be accurate, true, and it must reflect the true nature of the product. And of course, the role of the Bureau of Standard in this whole process is to protect the consumer through testing and verification. Now, a label will have two types of panels. It is separated in the principal display panel, and there's also the information panel. Now, for the principal display panel, that is the main area of the label that your consumer is most likely to see first. This section of the label, the front part, it must have on the name of the product, and it also must have the net quantity. Also, if it is that you have a brand, the brand name must be stated on the principal display panel. Now for the information panel, this is all the other areas of the label, and it will have on the other labeling requirements. So let's look now specifically at JSCRS 5, and that is the Jamaican standard for prepackaged foods. So the two requirements that we just met, the product name and the net quantity, they must be stated on the principal display panel. So the product name is really the information that is stated on your label that says to the customer what the product that you packaged actually is. Now, something that you need to bear in mind in stating your product name is, if it is that there is a legal name for the product, a name that is given by a local or regional standard, then that name must be the product name. So say, for example, coconut water. We're going to package some coconut water. There is actually a standard for coconut water. And in that standard, it states that the product name must be packaged natural coconut water. So if you're packaging coconut water, the product name has to be packaged natural coconut water. In the event, though, that there is no legal name for the product, then the common name must be used. And the common name is a name that that persons are generally familiar with. So say, for example, spaghetti or cake. Those are names that once you hear those terms, you know exactly what you're speaking about. In the event, though, that there's no legal name, no common name, then a proper description of the item should be stated on the label. For net quantity declaration, this must be stated again on the principal display panel, and it must be done using metric units. The net quantity states how much or what is the weight of the product, or what volume of the product is contained in the package. If it is that the product has a weight, meaning that is a solid, then it must be declared using the units associated with mass, and that is grams or kilogram. If it's a liquid, then you must use the units associated with volume, and that is milliliters or liters. You may choose to use the imperial system. However, metric is mandatory in Jamaica. So if you choose to use the imperial system, you will also need to state it in conjunction with the metric units. Country of origin. Now, this is another requirement of our standards, and this must be stated on your label. Now, the country of origin, it represents the country where the final significant change in the product took place. And it should be represented as product of, and you can state the country. So say, for example, product of Jamaica, or you can say made in Jamaica, if Jamaica is the country of origin, that is. As it relates now to the name and address statement, now this is the name and the address of the business that has primary responsibility for the product itself. Now, this must be declared by stating the name of the company, and it should be declared as follows: manufactured by, packaged by, distributed by, or imported by, whichever is applicable to you. The name of the company, followed immediately by the complete and identifiable address. So that means that you cannot be stating a portion of the address statement. You cannot just be saying Portmore St. Catherine. It must be complete. Because again, your customers, if they need to find you, if they need to reach you, they must be able to use the address stated on your label to do so. And a phone number, email address, your IG page is not sufficient. The standard requires a complete and identifiable address. Oh, and I must add that the country of origin and the address statement, there are two separate requirements, and as such, it must be treated accordingly. All right, so batch code. Batch code is a requirement, and the batch code is used for traceability purposes. Now, say for example, you may need to do a recall. Instead of pulling all the items that you have in the marketplace, you could just pull a specific batch. The batch code, you have the option of actually placing it on the label or on the package itself. But the important thing is that it must be placed on the package before it is placed in the market. The date mark is a similar thing where it can actually be placed on the package itself or on the label. Again, it must be placed. It must be presented at the time of packaging. Now, as it relates to the date mark, it is used to communicate the minimum date of durability for the product. Now, if it is that you're packaging a product and the date it is expected to go bad within 3 months, then you will need to state the day, the month, and the year. If though it has a shelf life greater than 3 months, then stating the month and the year is sufficient. All right, so list of ingredients. Now, we're talking about food, so of course you have to have a list of ingredients. The list of ingredients should be preceded by the word ingredients, contents, or anything that expresses a similar intent. And the ingredients should be listed in descending order of proportion by weight. There are some exceptions to this rule though. So for a single ingredient item, so like for example, water, it only has water. So you don't need to state the ingredient on the label. Also for alcoholic beverages for which there exists a regional standard, you would not need to state a list of ingredients. Another key thing that you must be mindful of in stating your ingredients is that if, for example, you have a compound ingredient, and a compound ingredient is, it's an ingredient that is itself comprised of more than one ingredient, then the compound ingredient should be stated, and also all the ingredients that made up that specific ingredient should be stated in bracket. again, in descending order of a proportion by weight or by volume. In stating your ingredient lists as well, if you have a food additive, so say for example, it's a preservative, a stabilizer, or so on, you are required to state the specific food additive as well as the functional class. So we have an example here, sodium benzoate. The sodium benzoate should be stated and the word preservative stated in bracket to indicate to your customers that this particular ingredient, it was used as a preservative. And finally, if you're manufacturing a product and it has food allergens, so like milk, egg, fish, nuts, that must be highlighted because these are the standards are primarily based on protecting the health and safety of your consumers, and food allergen can cause hypersensitivity. So we need to inform your customers that, hey, I know it might be a product that you're interested in, but it has a particular food allergen, and so it may not be safe based on your particular condition. Now, we know all the requirements that are needed to be placed on our labels, but how do you present it? The information that we present on the label, it must be clear, it must be prominent, and readily legible by the consumer under normal conditions of purchase. The information should also be in a minimum letter height of 1.5 millimeters in the lowercase o. And of course, the information must be presented in the English language. With the primary language in Jamaica, the official language in Jamaica is English. So we need to be able to read the information that is presented on the label. No, this is critical. A label on a prepackaged good may contain some other information, design, symbols, or pictorial matter, provided that no word, illustration, symbols, or any other matter are used to give erroneous impression of the net contents, ingredients, or the country of origin. So you should not be putting any graphics that is suggesting that there's something else in the product that is not actually there. No, claims. Sometimes we place some information, some verbiage on the label. Sometimes it is true. Sometimes they are used as a marketing tactic. But if a claim is stated, it must be substantiated. If it cannot be substantiated, then it should not be placed on your label. So claims that are prohibited are claims stating that any given food will provide adequate source of all essential nutrients, except where the competent authority has granted permission to do so. Again, if you make a claim on the label where it states that or where it implies that the suitability of a food for use in prevention, alleviation, treatment, or cure for disease, a disorder, or particular physiological condition can be helped, then the claim is prohibited. unless you are given permission to do so by the competent authority. Now, health claims, you can use them only if you are granted permission by the competent authority. The competent authority in Jamaica is the Ministry of Health. So any health claims that we see on the labels, you will be asked to contact them for permission to use it. Nowadays, we've seen a lot of products with the term organic, especially stated there. You may be stating that the product itself is organic or it was made using some type of organic ingredient. Again, this is seen as a claim, and all claims must be substantiated. You will need to provide a certificate that is stating that the product itself is organic, or the product was made using ingredients that are deemed to be organic. The competent authority in Jamaica is the National Certification Body of Jamaica. So you'll need to contact them in order to use this claim. Nutrition facts. A lot of food products have the nutrition panel stated on their label. It is not a requirement at this moment. However, if you so choose to use a nutritional facts panel, it is seen as a claim. And again, all claim, the theme song here is all claims must be substantiated. So to substantiate the nutrition facts panel, you will need to submit a nutritional analysis report to verify the information that you place in the panel. So we have created our label, we have everything, and we are ready to submit it for approval. Some other things that you need to be mindful of is that one, when you're submitting your label, the label should be printed to the actual size that you intend to put on your package. We need to see the label as it will be presented to your consumers. And again, the minimum letter height of the font that you're using should be 1.5 millimeters. It is very important to ensure that the information is legible and it is visible. Now, again, claims, all claims must be substantiated. Health claims, organic, nutritional claims, all of them, they must be substantiated. And sometimes persons may choose to use the national flag. So you may be stating product of Jamaica and you place the flag there. Of course, you're free to use it, but you need to seek permission from the Office of the Prime Minister before you use it. So these are things that you need to be mindful of when you're submitting your labels for assessment. So earlier we showed you this label here. We did tell you that there are some errors on the label. You got an opportunity to identify some. I'm going to give you another 2 minutes to check your answers from before, see if you can pick up on any additional errors, and I will hear your answers in a few. So just take some time again to look at the label, and in about 2 minutes, we will take a look at your answers.
All right, so while you do that, Kimberly, I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
When you were talking about having the address on the label, the correct address, I noticed that there is a tendency now for a lot of business people to use a post office box.
Mhm.
Is that allowed?
No, it is not allowed.
Okay.
It is not
Okay.
allowed. The
All right.
exact address of the business place itself must be stated.
Okay. And then I'm very happy that you clarified for us that if persons want to use the Jamaican flag on their products, permission must be sought by the office of the Prime Minister. As you
Right.
know, we here at JBDC, we see a lot of clients, and a
Mhm.
lot of times persons show up with the Jamaica flag emblazoned on whatever
Yes.
product they are doing, not knowing that they must receive permission before they put it on their product. And then another question, you talked at length about substantiating claims. How
Mhm.
do you give us an example of a claim and how you'd substantiate it?
All right. So, say for example, you are saying that, so you did not, you're packaging some orange juice, right? And you did
Mhm.
not have the nutrition facts panel on the label, but you have the statement at the front to say loaded with vitamin C.
Right.
That is seen as a nutritional claim. So you would need to show us a test report to substantiate the claim. Yes.
Oh.
Also say you again for the orange juice, you make a statement to say will boost immunity, will help to combat COVID-19, right? That is
Right.
a health claim. And all health claims, you will be asked to contact the Ministry of Health for permission for them to make a ruling to say, okay, you're okay to make this statement on the product, or you will need to take it off. Because again, the Bureau of Standards is a standards body. We are not the competent authority on matters relating to health. So we will ask you to contact them in those regards. Persons may also state that the product is organic, right? That is pretty
Mhm.
common. Yes, you can use the term organic on the label,
But you
but
have
you
to
have to
prove
provide
it.
us with the proof that it actually is.
Right. Ironically, as you say that, I remember years ago when I was doing my degree in marketing,
Mhm.
um, it's one of the things that we talked about, substantiating claims, but I never thought about it. When you were talking about it a while ago, I didn't think about it from that perspective. But even in marketing the product, if you make certain claims, you have
Mhm.
to be able to stand behind them. So,
Right,
so the
right.
consumer may not say to you, show me the proof that this is organic, or this will help to cure my prostate or whatever issue I
Mhm.
have. But there must be some truth in what it is that you are
Right.
expecting the public to the product that they are expecting the public to consume. All right, back over to you, Kimberly. So you
Can
can
I
go ahead. Sure.
can I just add to the claims thing?
Mhm.
Because I think it is very important for us to understand one thing, because sometimes the claim, the product that is said to be, the nutrient that is said to be in the product can actually do something for the disease. However, the quantity in the product is not sufficient. So that is one reason to why we need to take it to the Ministry of Health, for them to determine that there is sufficient amount of that particular nutrient to combat whatever you're saying that it can. You understand? Because some people will put a tiny bit of nutrient in it because you know that, iron can help with the bones and so forth, but when you look at the quantity, it is not sufficient. So we just want to be able to protect our consumers, and that is why it is really important. So Over back to you, Ms. Coyle.
All right, thank you. So we've had some time to revisit our earlier responses on the label, and do you have any differing views as to the errors that are stated on the label?
Well, I think we would need to know if the suggestions, if the responses first, are they correct? You know,
Right.
because I'm seeing it said sugar, no sugar added, but the ingredients has sugar. Label is a bit dull. Font is all the same size. Additional ingredients, no nutritional facts isn't there. The label claims no preservatives, but the last ingredient in the list is a preservative.
Very
So
good.
we need to know if these are all issues. Letter sizing on the label is not consistent. Label states it's all natural, but the ingredients indicates the use of synthetic preservatives. Directions not legible. Refund size. So were those
I
correct?
feel like a proud teacher. You did
Ah,
absolutely well, and you should be applauded. So
all right, so we're giving ourselves some what do you call them, some virtual hand claps.
of course, put yourself on the
Yes,
shoulder, man. You did
yes.
well. All right, see? All the errors are. I hope you don't come for my job, you know. All right, so I'm going to go through. I didn't see.
Pardon, you want to share the next slide? Solution.
Oh, okay, okay. All right, so I did not hear anyone mention the product name. The product name was stated as, it was stated as orange cherry juice. Well, sorry, must apologize. There is a standard for juice, JSCRS 27, and in the standard it states that a juice is defined as the liquid from a fruit or a vegetable. Now, this label here, if you look at the ingredients, we learned earlier that the ingredient listing should be in descending order of proportion by weight. The most dominant ingredient here is water. So and also it has sugar contained in it. So it cannot be classified as a juice, right? It is a drink, well, or a nectar, depending on the percentages, but we're not we're going there now. But right now, we're certain that it cannot be stated as a juice. Additionally, if you look closely at the ingredient listing too, we see water. Then the next ingredient is guava concentrate. There's no guava stated in the product name. There's also apple. Again, no apple stated in the product name. So we would ask the customer to clarify the product name that is stated, because there is some amount of inconsistency with the product name that is stated in comparison to the ingredient listing. There's misrepresentation of graphics. Again, the product name is stated as orange cherry juice. So we see a photo of cherry. We see some oranges there. But if you look closely, there's pineapple there. So it's deceptive, because the customer is not quite sure if the product actually has pineapple. Well, the ingredients did not state it. So it is giving an erroneous impression that pineapple is actually in the product. Other thing, country of origin, the country of origin is stated, it's not so clear, and it's stated as made in TT. I don't know what TT is, so you would need to properly state the country. Address statements. The address statement, it says Nature's Finest. So the address itself is complete, but the address statement must be preceded by manufactured by, packed by, distributed by, imported by, whichever is applicable, before stating the business name. So that is what we'd flag this portion of the label for. The net quantity. So I did see that somebody stated that the net quantity, it should be in metric, and it's a drink, it's a beverage. So the units would be milliliters or liters. Another key thing that I've emphasized is that the net quantity must be on the principal display panel. And here we saw where they said net weight. Now, weight is used if the product is a solid. Now, in this case, this is a beverage, so you would need to say net content. Instruction for use, the instruction for use is not clear. So it needs to reach the minimum letter height of 1.5 mm. Nutritional information. No, there is no facts panel on the label, but you do have some amount of nutritional information stated there. The facts panel is not mandatory, right? But because they have some amount of nutritional information, speaking about the calories and the sugar, then they would need to substantiate the information presented. Health claims. So they did state that the beverage will boost immunity. So they would need to get the authorization to make such claim from the Ministry of Health. And finally, what you mentioned earlier to relating to the preservative at the front of the label, big and bold and clear, we have the statement to say there's no sugar added, no preservative. But if you take a look to the back of the label, you see that there's preservative included, as well as sugar was added. So there's some things on the label, the graphics and the information that is deceptive. Again, customers must also, they must always be presented with the information, with the correct and true information, so that they can make informed decisions.
All right, fantastic. Kimberly, I see a hand up from Leith Forrester James. Can we take that question,
Sure.
please? Go ahead, Ms. Forrester James.
I'm very thankful for this presentation. There's one question that I need for you to answer. I'm a seasoning and sauce producer. My biggest market is overseas. I'm looking at the overseas market. I have not started to market it fully yet, but I send samples and so forth. So the market is building up. There are demands for the product. However, my marketers are not an agent also. They are partners in the business. It's a shareholding business, and they are partners in the business. And they are the persons who are going to be marketing it abroad, in the UK, US and in Canada. Canada will be probably the biggest market we're looking at. I produce the goods, package it here in Portland, and it's an home-based production business. And I do everything, right? What do I do if I'm sending it to marketers there? What do I put on it? Produce, package, by Shirley's Delight or whatever.
All right, so as it relates to the overseas market,
Mhm.
we can provide, so each country will have their own set of standards, or there are requirements
Yeah,
for you. So Jamaica has as their requirements, Canada will,
yes.
the United States, and so on.
Mhm.
Most of the requirements, they are similar, but there are some subtle differences, and the label for each country will have to be tailored to meet those requirements.
Mm.
Currently, we do not we do not do assessments for the overseas market, as we cannot approve it. But we have a branch here that is actually able to provide you with the information that is required for each overseas market, and that's the so that is the Food Safety Modernization Act. And coming up shortly, my colleague, Mrs. Bailey, she will actually be looking at the labeling requirements for 2 of the countries that you highlighted. All right.
All right, thank you very much. So you're saying Miss Bailey is going to be telling us about that this morning as well?
Right.
Oh, fabulous. All right, so I want Miss Bailey to go ahead and tell us about that, because we're learning so many things that, as somebody said, I didn't know so much about this topic until now. And I'm also seeing a packaging and labeling workshop as well, Miss Kimberly. So you might want to look into that.
No
All right,
problem.
all right, Miss Bailey, go ahead. Let's hear what you're sharing with us.
Okay, so thank you so much, Ms. Powell. That was really great. So what I'll be doing, I'll be looking at some general requirements for food in the US, just to say that this is not exhaustive, right? Just to give you a little knowledge of how they operate. As Ms. Powell said, we have a branch here who you can call and they will take you through in depth. All right, we may not be able to answer every single one of your questions here regarding the overseas market, but we can definitely route you to persons who can help you. All right, Shane, if you're listening. Right. So regarding requirements for foods in the USA, like Jamaica, the name of the food must be on the front panel and it should be prominently printed. Use of a common name or established name by law is also required. There is a definite requirement, though, for the name of the food to be parallel to the base of the container. So you can't slant it or turn it any other way. It has to be parallel to the base of the container. So that is something that they advertise here. And of course, if a foreign language is used on the label, the English must be included for all statements required. In the US, main language is English as well. We have similar requirement here. All right, so the net contents, that is what provides the amount of food in the container. It must be expressed in weight, measure, or numeric count, just like us. And if the food is solid, semi-solid, or viscous, you express it in terms of weight, right? So of course, your semi-solid foods would be like your butter and your spread or so forth. That must be in weight. Viscous, like your molasses and so forth, it has to be expressed in weight, and your honey, of course. Now the ingredient listing, that of course is what is contained in the food, and it has to be listed in descending order of predominance as well. The nutrition facts panel, it is a requirement for foods in the US. I mean, technically right now in Jamaica, it's not a requirement for all foods, but in the US, they require that their foods should have nutritional information on them.
So if you're exporting to the US, you have to put it
Yes,
on, okay,
yes,
all
that
right.
is a requirement.
Okay,
you should
gotcha.
have. So you should take note of that. And of course, they have a little arrangement that the nutrition facts may be placed together with the ingredient list and the name and address of the packer, manufacturer, or distributor on the principal display panel. So if you look at some of the foods, you will recognize that that is how it is placed on the principal display panel. Right, and of course, your name and address statement, you still have your manufacturer, distributor, importer, or packer. So in addition to that, you should state the role that you play in the process. Whether you're the manufacturer, the distributor, the packer, that is also one of our requirements. All right, so looking at this, you will see that if you label your product properly for one market, you will realize that there's hardly much you have to add for the next, right? So you just do your research and put together if you're going to import, so that you know you can use your one label and you don't have to split them. So that's it for the US. Let's look at what's happening in the UK. So there are some things that, you know, different countries emphasize. For the United Kingdom, the labels need to be easily read and understood. And they should be difficult or impossible to remove. So if, of course, even though the label may be correct, if it is not properly affixed to the package, you know that that will be you not actually living up to a requirement. And it should also be accurate and not misleading. No country wants you to mislead their consumers. And except for single ingredient food again, you should have your ingredient listing. And the warning statements are relevant, right? So where any warning at all needs to be on the product, make sure that it is there. And of course, the name of the food has to be on the principal display panel. And of course, your date of minimum durability, your expiry date needs to be stated. And again, the name and address and the role that you play in the process, whether you're the manufacturer, the packer, the seller, everybody needs to know your lot number and your batch number. These are all requirements for the United Kingdom. And of course, you need to have your net quantity as well. You need to have the weight of the food in grams or kilograms. And if it's volume, liters or milliliters, right? This information is required for any packaged foods over 5 grams or 5 milliliter. However, it is required for packaged herbs or spices of any weight or volume, right? So you can see that they take labeling of those items seriously. So irrespective of the weight for herbs and spices, it needs to have all the required information. And of course, solid foods that come packed in ice glaze or any form of liquid, you must have the net weight and the drain weight. By the way, that's a local requirement as well. Once your food is packed in a medium that you're not going to use, you have to have the drain weight, because of course you can't fill up the fruit bowl with a lot of liquid, and no one knows, you know, how much fruit you're gonna get after you drain the liquid off or so forth. right? Now, a nutritional claim is considered to be any claim that states that your food treats, cures, or even prevents a medical condition or disease. And that is regulated. Even selling food that is in some way fortified or intended to be used as a supplement is closely regulated in the United Kingdom. So of course, if you're importing there, these are things that you need to take into consideration if you're going to place them on your label. Now you saw what the nutritional information looked like for the US. And of course, we have adopted that format here in Jamaica as well. Now this is what the nutritional information looks like for the United Kingdom. So right away, you see that if you're importing to the UK, you're going to have to get a different nutritional information panel. All right, so that's it. You know, just a little sneak peek on what you will, some of what you will need if you're importing to the UK and the US. And just to tell you that in our branch here, packaging, non-metallic and the furniture branch, we do much more than label assessment. So these are some of the services that we offered. In addition to the label assessment, we do can seam analysis. We do burr strength tests, tear tests, ink rub tests, leak detection, smoothness and porosity, drop impact tests. So these are tests on different packages, paper, plastic, whatever you need, right? So that's it. Thank you.
Wow, thank you
All right.
so much. Okay, so somebody just dropped a question in the chat and they said they know it's a silly question, but I don't agree with that comment, Alexandra. Suppose the product is in syrup, like lychee. Would it be labeled as a solid or liquid? Can anyone respond to that one for me?
It would be labeled as a solid, but again, you would need to state the drained weight. Because it's
Okay.
really the lychee that you're selling, right?
Alexandria can let us know if it's, yes, it's the lychee.
Right, right. So it
Right.
should be labeled as a solid with the drained weight as well.
Okay, and well, I guess, okay, all right, cool. All right, any other questions from anybody in the chat at the moment? I'm not seeing anything in the chat. All right, so as we draw to a close this morning, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for taking time to join us this morning. We certainly will have to do a lot more of these sessions with the Bureau of Standards. What you provided for us this morning was truly informative and a really, really engaging presentation. Just a reminder to everyone that the session was recorded and it will be available on the JBDC's YouTube channel by Friday of this week. And so we invite you to follow us on YouTube so that you'll be notified when the presentation is uploaded. So before we go, whether it's from Mr. Slater or Miss Paulette or Kimberly, is there any other information you want to share with us before we go today? Nothing? All right, Grayson says, awesome, thank you very much. Very informative, much appreciated. Leaf, somebody in the chat wants to get in contact with you. She's in Canada. So you can, her name is Sandra Robinson. So send her a private message with your information before we log out. All right, so thank you everyone for joining us this morning. And we look forward to another. I will definitely invite the Bureau of Standards back for another session. Quickly before we go, Jeffrey wants to know if the BSJ does nutritional analysis. Can somebody quick?
Yes.
All right.
Yes, we do. We absolutely do. So free with all your questions to call us, reach out to us, and we will be able to direct you based on your specific request. But we do we do testing on the product. The product testing portion is done by our microbiology branch as well as our chemistry branch. So based on the product and what you require, they will be able to guide you.
All right, great. Thank you so much. Leith, I see your hand up. I'm trying to unmute you. All right, so just get in touch with Miss Sandra Robinson.
Can
Oh,
you share my number, please? Because as I'm not able to navigate with my phone.
Oh, all right. I'll figure it out after we've logged out, because we will have both of your contact information on file here. So once you give me permission, I will go ahead and share it with her.
Thank you very much.
No problem. All right, everyone. Mr. Campbell, go ahead with your quick question.
Yes, I would like to know the information about the international standards, or you can find it.
Okay, where can we find the international standards? Who did it? Miss Byfield? Right.
Okay, so we are encouraging you to reach out to us at the Bureau of Standards, because we actually have a branch who will guide you through the process if you want to do exporting, and we're really encouraging.
And you want to give us a number here so that everybody can have access to that number as well? A number for the export branch?
All right, so.
Okay. So Shane just wrote in the chat, you can get more information about international market access requirements from the BSJ's Food Safety and Modernization branch and or regional and international trade branch. The email address is ssatchell, SSATCHELL @bsj.org.jm. And that's in the chat.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm gonna write that down as well. Her name is Sharika Satchel Knight. That almost gave me a tongue twister a while ago. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. I cannot say thank you enough on behalf of the Jamaica Business Development Corporation. So remember, the session is available on our YouTube channel as of Friday, and you can feel free to just subscribe to the channel and you will be notified when the session is uploaded. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us, and we will see you again next month for the next session of the Virtual Biz Zone. Bye.